Alright, today we're going to do a little video on an alternative way to prep your beds for next year. Some people don't have the ability to do cover crops, or they live in a climate where there's such a small selection of things that'll grow over the winter that they just choose not to do it. So I made a video on the cover crops, on doing the cover crops already, if you want to look for that one if you haven't seen it. This video is going to be more on using your old plant material as compost, how to set it up and get it to break down before next spring so that you can then spread it through all your beds. And then that bed will be extra enriched with the microbial life that was breaking down that compost as well, that goes down into the soil but doesn't stay in the compost. Nasia, hey, that's not one you can chew on. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. That's not one you can chew on. So what we want to do, especially if you're doing permaculture or hugelkulture, this is going to help you a lot if your beds are newer, where you've put logs and sticks and whatnot in the bottom of the beds, which is the case here. These are first year hugelkulture beds. I built these this spring. They're a little over 3 feet deep. There's roughly a foot of logs in there and sticks, and then I threw some clay soil down in there, just a little bit, on top of the leaves and pine needles that I put on top of that. So there's a little extra minerals down there. And then I amended the beds with biofish, which is a 772, so that they had some nitrogen to work with right off the bat. And then I spoon-fed my plants fish hydrolysis, knowing that the beds, wouldn't be releasing any nitrogen this first year. So especially if you have a case like this is an excellent idea. Maybe even better than cover crops for a quicker fix, because you could do this in one season. What I did is I have this trellis tunnel, and I've already started on it this morning. You can see I've pulled all this stuff down and laid it in the bed. I still have plants going in this bed over here, so I'm not going to do that there. But everywhere I don't have plants going is a viable option. And what you want to do is take these plants down while they're still green. Don't let them dry out completely and then take them down. You can see I have some pumpkins and stuff. They dried out because they quit producing long before the tomatoes. It got too cold. These tomatoes actually didn't die until they had 3 weeks of freezing nights. They survived the 30s, the high 20s, the mid 20s, the low 20s, and then when it hit 19, they finally all froze. And I attribute that to a combination of the microbiome that I built using inoculants, using grass from the desert, transplanted it into here with the roots to get that mycorrhiza into the bed so it'd associate to my vegetables and whatnot. Using my biostimulant, mycogasm, which specifically affects the mycorrhiza and gets them to associate off the roots you transplant to all your other roots in the bed. And then one other thing I did down here in these tomatoes that lasted where the others didn't was I used my Russian thistle ferment, which is super high in oxalic acid and calcium both. And then it's got a fair bit of nitrogen in there because the plant contains a lot of nitrogen. I ferment that with EM1 and molasses until it's fully decomposed. And then I applied that to all this stuff over here at 5 mils per gallon to the root zone. And what it did immediately that I noticed is it made all the tomatoes, these have been through 4 weeks of freezes, they're still rock hard. And we've gotten 19 degrees as the lowest freeze. So anyway, even these, like, you know, well, I guess that was a good demonstration, huh? So I put that stuff on these guys, on everything over here. I don't know, month and a half before the season was really up. And what I noticed right off the bat is all the tomatoes got super firm. And same with the cucumbers, where you could literally, I have a video of it, you can bounce a fully ripe cherry tomato off the floor several times before it even gets a soft spot. Anyway, and then it made the fruit more tasty. It seemed like there was more flavor compounds, or they were more prevalent, and probably a little bit sweeter as well. That was the least noticeable, but I noticed that a little bit. But then everything over here that got that in the roots survived all the way down to 19 degrees. Like the cucumbers, everything were setting fruit while it was in the 20s at night. And then they finally died at 19 degrees. Like the 19 degrees was 4 days ago. Obviously that didn't set more than a week before that. And, you know, that was solid freezing temperatures. This thing's still firm, too. Check this. Except for the tail where it didn't get. But it's still firm. This is the craziest thing I've ever seen. So anyway, this is supposed to be a bed prep video, not a Russian ferment advertisement, Russian thistle ferment advertisement. So I'll get back to what I was saying. I got super sidetracked. Sorry, guys. Anyway, so you want to pull all this down while it's green, fruit and all, and toss it in your pile over here. Okay, and I'll get the rest of that. You don't want to wait till it's dried out. Get everything while it's green. It's got a lot more nitrogen in it then. And then preferably what you're going to do is cover this in 4 to 6 inches of manure of some sort, whether it be, he's eating the celery. Anyway, cover that in 4 to 6 inches of manure, whatever kind you have access to. I use chicken manure on this bed right here, if you can see that. Chicken manure on that one. I'll probably put horse manure on this bed, just so that I have some little more variety. I have a few yards of horse manure that my friends gave me a while back, so we'll put that on there. And then you want to keep these moist. You do not want them to dry out. Set up a drip line on top of them on a timer. Obviously it doesn't take a lot of water through winter because things aren't evaporating like they would. And then you can do one of several things with those compost piles. You see I got another one here. Yeah. And I plan on turning that one. This one over here, and this long bed here, I don't plan on turning those. I plan on putting a little bit of straw on top of them and watering it real good and covering it with a tarp, and then pull the tarp back once a week or once every other week and water it good again, making sure it stays moist. We want 60 to 75% moisture in there at all times. So, if you live in a dry climate like I do, you're going to have to cover it and lift that thing up and moisten it again as needed. Let's see, I think that's about it. There's our little cover crop demonstration right there. These beds will mostly get composted this year because, like I said, it's actually a quicker solution for a high nitrogen, super high nitrogen need on first your hugelkulture, or if you're doing permaculture and you're just starting out and you just got a whole bunch of wood chips going that aren't broken down enough. That can help you speed that process up. Comment if you have any additions to make to the conversation.